Welcome to this tutorial from the Sharper Turtle in Microsoft Excel. In this tutorial, we'd like to show you an alternative to the VLOOKUP formula, which finds data in a table and finds something that matches either in the row or column. We're going to look at something that's a little more complex, but it will enable you to do some things you can't do with either VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP. So let's get started. In cell A3, shaded in green, I have a date, and what I want to do is go into my table that you see on the screen, locate the date, which is marked in yellow, and then return the amount in the third column. We're going to do this by combining two formulas. One is match and one is index. So we'll start, I'm going to break it up into two pieces and then show you what it looks like when we use both of them together. I'm going to click here on cell B3. And you say B3 is using the match formula. It doesn't return the data, it returns the position of matching information. So I type in match and then I use a left bracket. I want to match, in this case, A3, which is my date. And then I type in the column that I want, which is column that starts at G3 and goes to G10. Then I type another comma and I type 0. 0, it tells me I want an exact match. You can use a +1 or a -1 if you want equal to or less than or equal to or greater than, but we're going to use an exact match in this particular case. And so when I apply this formula in cell B3, it gives me the number of 7 because it's the 7th element down in the column of G3 to G10. So that's one important piece of information that I have. Now we're going to look at a different formula that we'll combine it with in a moment. This formula is in cell B6. It's called the index formula. The index formula returns the actual contents of a cell. And the format is you type index, and then you type the range of cells you're indexing, that you're looking into. In this case, it's column I3 to I10. Then I type a comma, and then I type the number of the cell in terms of the location, the 7th cell down, and that gives me my 787. Now, I can use a larger array than a single column, and then I need to add a row number as well. But in this case, when I'm using a single column, I don't have to add another digit after the 7. So this returns the contents of the cell. So the first one gives me a location over here. The second formula gives me the contents of this particular cell. Now what I'm going to do is combine the two. The value 7 here is the same as the value over here. And so I'm going to replace the 7 with all this information here from match and make it one simple command. Here's how I combine them in cell B10. It's the index, and then I have the range, I3 to I10, we're still in the amount column, of the match that I find when I look back at cell A3, looking at the date column, G3 to G10, with an exact match. So I'm combining the two commands together to get the result. And if I go down here, this would be what it would look like in a single example, where I have the date here, and then I picked a different cell for a date, and then I picked the entire formula here down here. So I wouldn't have to have the entire formula split into two pieces to run it. Once you get used to it, you say, I'm going to index and I'm going to match. So you just replace the second element in your index formula with your match formula. One's embedded in the other. And it's very easy to do. I'll type in a different date to show you how easy it works. We'll do 1/6/17. Nope. I have to get the right date here. 1/6/17. There we go. And that gives my 352 from Glenn. So this is one way in which you can do an alternative to VLOOKUP. Now you may be asking the question, well, why do I want to go to all this bother to combine two formulas? Let me show you why. Here's an example of a two-column lookup. And I've color-coded this to show you the ranges I've defined. The two-column lookup is going to use both of these formulas in this cell. It's going to do index and match. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to look in these two columns together to say I want to match both the manufacturer of the laptop and the model and return the code. Now in order to do that, I have to introduce you to a different concept called concatenation. Concatenation basically adds two text fields together. And here's an example. If I type the formula in cell C10 or in D10 of B1 ampersand B2, what that does, it goes back here and it adds HP to stream. It doesn't add a space, it doesn't put a plus in there, it just adds the two together. We're going to use this later on. It's the same thing as if in this case, I'm calling this one manufacturer in my range. I'm calling this the model in my range. So you'll see in a moment that I defined all these as ranges. Each of these shaded areas in color is a range. We're going to show you how we use that. So let's go ahead and see what we can find here. I'm going to break it up into match again and break it up into index again. If I look at cell A3, I have another match. In this case, the match is, only in this case, it is B1 and B2 combined. So it would equal my HP stream looking at it as one word. And then the place I'm looking at is manufacturers with a plural, which is the gray area, and models as plural, which I defined over here as the red area. So it's adding this and this one in each of these columns. These two are combined together to make a word: HP Stream, HP ProBook, HP Pavilion. And then it's a 0, so it's an exact match. So this is what I wind up with. I can either use the coordinates over here, or I can use the defined ranges, which is probably easier to follow. So I take my manufacturer and model, which is these two cells. I look for them in manufacturers, plural, and models, plural, which is these two columns, and I'm looking for an exact match. And in this case, the result I get is 4. So I go down 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm on the 4th row from the top. And then then I use the index. The index is equal to, and I've defined my code as F2 to F7 over here. So the index I'm looking for is found in this column, and the index I'm looking for is the value in A13, which is my 4. So I'm looking for the 4th one down in this column, which will give me C822. So I'm using the same process I used on the previous page. Then I combine the formulas up here in cell B3 like I did before, and it's equal to the index of the code plus the match, and the match is replacing A13 here because I want to be flexible. I want to be able to change it anytime I want to, again with a perfect match. Now this is using multiple columns or rows, so it's an array. And you notice the curly bracket around the formula. When you type in a formula like this, you start with the equal sign and you end with the closing right bracket. then you have to hit Control-Shift-Enter to cause Excel to add the other brackets and treat it as an array. Otherwise it won't work. So when you're using multiple columns like this or multiple rows, you have to treat it like an array. So type in the formula without the curly brackets, then press Control-Shift-Enter rather than Enter to cause Excel to put it in. And now you will get the information. Let me change the data here so you can see what the difference would be. Let's do HP ProBook. Enter, and now you notice it looked up 2 columns to find the 3rd column. It's a little bit complicated, but once you get the hang of it, it gives you lots of flexibility in what you can look up. And I highly recommend you do what I did, except for the color coding, and you define all these as ranges. It makes the logic of the commands very easy to follow.